and definitely go and buy Grant's book.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello and welcome to GatherVerse Book Summit. And what an amazing fireside chat we had with Grant. And thank you to 5-Star BDM for also sponsoring this event. And also big thank you to Pico as well for sponsoring us. But we have a fantastic roundtable discussion right now with so many amazing panelists here. And it's great to see some familiar faces as well. On this roundtable discussion, we're going to be speaking about when stories leave home, why our stories matter in the world. Couldn't agree more. So what we're going to do, panelists, is we're going to do a quick introduction from each of yourselves, and then we're going to get into the discussion and the questions for this roundtable. So we're going to start to my right-hand side or left-hand side, whichever is on the screen. And we're going to start with the Director of Communications at GatherVerse. It is Lynn. Welcome, Lynn, and good to see you.
Good to see you too. Greetings, everyone. I'm very happy to be here, GatherVerse Book Summit. And of course, this is our last our panel for 2025. So I'm very, very excited about that. And just want to welcome everyone as well. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us, Lynn. And I'm glad that you're also able to join us as well. Unlike the technical difficulties that have been going on behind the scenes, of course. Tracy, welcome. Please introduce yourself, and it's great to have you with us at GatherVerse.
Thanks for having me here. I'm really passionate about this topic, and I look forward to our discussion. I'm Tracy McDonald. I'm coming to you from Arlington, Virginia, and I am a professional speaker, a consultant in the risk and fraud area, and a blogger and writer.
Incredible, Tracy. So many different careers there, but it's great to have you with us.
Thanks.
Up next, we have Dr. Tammy Francis. So please tell us who you are, Dr. Francis.
Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Tammy Francis, better known as Dr. Tammy in the internet streets and around the world. I help you move in the direction of more and prepare for what's next through books, travel, strategy on a platter of tech. Love it through all threads. And I am your strategist, and I am so happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
I can't wait for you to just strategize on this roundtable discussion, Dr. Tammy Francis. James, good to see you again as well. Please tell the people who you are who don't know you, James.
Yeah, Russell, thanks. It's great to see you again. Good to see you again. Hey, everybody. So my name is, I'm James Welniak, and I am the Director of Mindfulness and Focus with CUP Advisory. I'm also the face of screen addiction, recovery, and prevention. And this was me in 2023. And I had the privilege of meeting a best-selling author, since we're talking about books, Amy Blankston. I was able to share the story, a miracle story, guys, of Amy Blankston, the author, how when I was coming back from digital work, coming back to digital work after 2 months after suicidal thoughts, this book, this physical book, got in between me and my screen time to create MRI, which is my product, which measures your relationship with information in order to manifest the dreams of your life. So I'm great to be here today. Thanks, Russell. I know I've seen you. I feel like I know you. I always feel this is beautiful because this is a human connection, but we are using artificial. So this is a beautiful way to connect around the world. Thank you.
Appreciate you, James. And at this rate, you'll be moving into GatherVerse. At this rate, the
I love it. I love it. And guys, I would love to share the. So Amy Blankson actually recorded our 15-minute. I talked to her for an hour. So if you wouldn't mind, I would love to share it in the chat. It's a beautiful story.
We'll get around to that in a minute, James. We've got to go through the introductions first, but we'll head back over to you. All right, James?
Awesome.
Thank you, James. Chantal, please introduce yourself and welcome.
Love the enthusiasm, James. Good to have you.
Oh, love your team. Love you guys. I love the girls. Sorry, Russell.
Oh, well, now you just rejected me. Come on. I'm joking.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Chantal Buerta. I am a South African, but I'm also a global nomadic traveler. I call myself a slow mad because I travel slowly. I'm on the beautiful island of Mauritius at the moment. I help leaders build integrity from the inside out. I call myself an identity architect because the way we see ourselves determines how we show up. How we show up determines the results we get. I've also just published my first book. Second book is also out.
Congratulations.
Of course, Book Summit is why I'm here. Stories matter, right?
Absolutely, Chantal. And I guess that's finished your introduction. So awesome. Double thumbs up. Thank you for joining us, Chantal. It's great to have you with us. Over to you, Sarah. Please introduce yourself. And I don't know if this is your first time at GatherVerse, so welcome to GatherVerse. And please introduce who you are.
Thank you. Yes, it is my first time. Lucky to be here.
Oh, wow.
My name is Sarah Aviram. I am an author and speaker. I'm working on my second book right now about my experience living and working across 12 countries in 12 months. So I talk about what travel can teach us about our ability to adapt, to be more resilient, and to manage through change. Wow.
I don't even know where to begin on that. 12 countries in 12 months is crazy. Thank you for joining us, Sarah. I'm sure we'll get more into that as we go through the questions. Jennifer, please introduce yourself and also welcome to GatherVerse as well. Oh, you want to unmute your microphone, Jennifer? There's like a little microphone down the bottom. Yeah, that's it.
Sorry
welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm Jennifer Jank. I go by JJ because there are so many Jennifers that I was in class with. I'm reaching out from Long Beach, California. I too recently had a book published. I'm a productivity consultant in addition to being an author and speaker. And I really work with business leaders to help them get their stuff done so that they can then have a fulfilling and wonderful life outside the business they love.
By the way, I love the title. Double thumbs up on the title. Incredible. And last but not least, Anne, it's good to see you once again as well. Please tell the people who you are who don't know you, Anne.
Also, Russell, lovely to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm Anne Faye. I'm from Singapore, sunny island. It's now 1:30 a.m., but so happy to be here. So I run the School of Leadership. I'm very passionate about transforming bosses from hell to bosses from heaven. And fun fact, so since everyone's sharing that book, I've co-written a couple of books. So this one hit Amazon #1. It's called Venus Rising, The Phoenix Awakens. So it's inspiring stories about women entrepreneurs, 23 of them to be exact. So I'm just excited to hear everyone's story tonight and looking forward to the panel. Thank you.
Wow, so many books released in this panel. It's amazing, absolutely incredible. Thank you for joining us, Anne. And let's get into some of this discussions because there's a lot to discuss and little time. Actually, sorry, before we do, I forgot to introduce myself. Apologies. My name is Russell. I am the GatherVerse Global Affairs Director at GatherVerse. Also, I'm co-founder of Just Verify, and Just Verify is focused on building the trust infrastructure for AI. So we focus on the verification and the verifiability and the trustworthiness of AI models to ensure the responsible adoption across the world, basically. And yeah, basically we build an entire trust infrastructure for that in a nutshell. So, all right, let's get into the questions because we've got so many questions to ask and answer. So let's get straight into it, shall we? So, question 1. What makes a story ready to travel beyond its home? Very interesting question. So, Lynn, since you are sitting right next to me, of course, and you're also a part of the GatherVerse team as well, why don't you kickstart us off?
You know, Russell, I'm so excited that we even have authors here. And I'm also thinking about being an author after being in this room with these amazing authors here. What makes a story travel beyond home? I've been here at GatherVerse and I've listened to many stories from different people from different parts of the world. We have someone like Anne, who is from Singapore. I'm from Africa. Some of you are from USA. What makes our stories travel home, beyond our home? It's a platform like GatherVerse. Can I just say that? It's a platform like GatherVerse where people are brought in together to share their stories. And my other thing would be authenticity. Just be authentic with your story. Don't try to. I believe from the last panel that there was an introduction of AI and AI telling its own narratives. But in this case, I really believe the authenticity of our own stories without any dilution or any addition, that is what makes your story travel beyond home. Yes.
No, it's a very interesting point. And, also when we're talking about, when we talk about trust as well, and when it comes to, trusting AI to do our books on our behalf, or trusting, what an author saying in the book, etc. It's extremely important that, we do, work on the trust side of things in terms of, looking what's inside the book. How authentic is it? Is it AI generated? Is it not? And also, discovering that and figuring that out. And as I like to say, verifying basically if it's AI or not in a nutshell, right? Because these days is so much blends together into one that we don't know what's real and what isn't. So when it comes to books as well, we need to be able to figure out what is real and what isn't a real book, and being able to know what is AI generated and what isn't. So Tracy, this brings me on to yourself. What, from your point of view and for your lens, what makes a story ready to travel beyond your home, Tracy?
Well, I am a Foreign Service spouse, and we've lived overseas for 12 years and just returned to America.
Oh
so
my
I
God.
can say that I've been in many countries, like Anne and Sarah, traveled around. And the biggest thing I can say is when you speak from the heart, like Lynn said, when you're authentic, AI cannot replace our human experience and the human kindred spirit connection that we provide when we tell our stories. A machine cannot replicate joy and loss and love and those powerful soul emotions that we emit and that we inject into our stories. I think every author injects a bit of their self, whether it's their, not just their voice, but a bit of their culture as well when they tell stories. So I think as long as you're coming from a point of trying to share your true story with someone who's ready to receive it, then it is ready, even if it's not well polished. I think if the message is there and you're just trying to communicate with others, I find it fascinating in every country I'm in. When you ask someone, who are you, when you meet them for the first time, they tell you a bit of a story of who they see themselves and what their origins are and where they're from. So I really think the story is about the human connection.
I do agree. And, when we're talking about authorship, right, it's kind of like you have two sides to this. obviously this is just from my perspective and my lens. You know, I'm not an author, just FYI. So I'm not 100% certified or qualified to discuss everything, but I will try anyway. But on the one side you have the authorship when it comes to the book itself, right? When it comes to the text. But then you also have the other side when it comes to like the audiobooks, right? Or when you're reading I don't know, maybe if you watch it on a YouTube video. I see people watch them on YouTube videos and listen along and reading the words at the bottom. So when we're talking about the distribution of the books, for example, right, in the authorship and what you're telling your story, it's kind of like, can AI, like let's say AI can replicate when it comes to the text side of things, but when it comes to the audio and video side of things, that potentially gets a little bit harder, right? Because LLMs are large language models. So the language model and foundation of this is that it turns tokens into text, right? In a nutshell. So when we're thinking of that, is from your lens, Tracy, and we'll bring you into this quickly as well. Do you think when it comes to text, audio, and video, do you think that when it comes from a book, right? Do you think the authenticity is there when it comes to the audio and video side of things? Or do you just think it's just from the text side of things? Or actually not even at all?
That's a very interesting question. I think the authenticity can come through in different ways, whether it's audio, video. However, when it's not the person telling you a story, you lose a little bit of that emotional energy that comes from that human exchange with another person. There are many talented authors who can capture a lot of that on the page, but I still think something's missing if it's not an in-person exchange. I like to see someone's expression, so I'm a very visual person. So it depends too on how the person is a learner and how they receive information. I love being able to see someone's eyes and lips and face when I'm 100%. Being told a story.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And Dr. Tammy Francis, I will also pass the same question over to you because maybe you might have a different point of view on that. But just to, I guess, maybe to reiterate my question, when it comes to the audio, video, and also text version, when it comes to the AI, and when we talk about authenticity and human creativity and authentic to me, so to speak, do you think AI could potentially do those different factors, or do you think it's just like, no, it can't do any of that at all whatsoever? Like you think it's 100% human and it has to be human, or if it is human, it has to be like human with AI, like that kind of sort of thing?
So I agree with Tracy, and okay. I think it has to be a little of both, and more so human. What I know about telling stories and interacting with people and making connections and authenticity, it starts with purpose. And so if the story has a purpose, if all of that typically comes from the human, whether you're feeding it to the AI, the source, it still comes from human, like that purpose, that because I think stories are more powerful when they inspire, when they disrupt, when they heal, when they reveal some issue. And that comes from humans, that comes from our experiences, that comes from our knowing. And I think that, yes, it's okay to use AI and technology as a tool, but I think a lot of that comes from making meaning. I think that's what stories is about, is making meaning and and having connections to that meaning.
No, you do bring up a good point there. And I mean, I'm just also looking at the comments as well. And a comment in there was from Key Bookstore. He says, especially audio can't capture powerful human inflections, the unique voice, one of a kind in itself. That's what he said. Yeah. So yeah, you bring up a very good point, Dr. Tammy Francis, and thank you for sharing that. And we're going to go on to the next question now. And James, I'm going to fire this one over to you since I know you have a lot to say. So
I always do.
So here we go. So this question is, how does sharing our lived experience strengthen unity and global understanding? I think this is a very good question for you. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I look at everything now through the trinity of being human. That's the mind, body, spirit. And I look at things from an embodiment perspective. I know we talk a lot about AI and about artificial. So we've got artificial ingredients, artificial information, and now we've got artificial intelligence. And those are all tools. But when we talk about personal stories, it's all around the human emotion. AI, artificial, does not have emotion. So in order to build bridges, is that really personal stories that resonate, that touches to the heart center, and that is around the world. But we also have to understand our audience. And so there's some really great innovations I've saw. There's I'm actually writing a book, shock, but it's on Substack. And I like, the reason I like about Substack is that it allows you to have mixed media. So I think I can't remember who the guest was that talked about wanting to see someone talk and moving their lips and their eyes. Well, if you have digital content like a mini podcast, you can create a book, a chapter that has graphics, but also has you as the author, not just your voice, but you speaking and telling your story about that chapter. So that way you could have maybe a younger audience that doesn't really like to read books, which became my problem, guys, because when I was in my addiction, I stopped reading physical books and I moved to the Kindle and I moved to the screen. And then I found that my library had all these unread books, all of them. And I was a big bookworm. And so we have to take that embodiment into consideration when we share personal stories and how they're delivered. Because if you deliver a book, a traditional book, well, I didn't read this because I didn't read physical books anymore. So it sat collecting dust until I was forced by the universe to read this chapter about the turtles, which told me, James, get a grip of your screen time and screens because it's killing you and your nervous system.
Right.
And so I think when we talk about these stories, we have to look at how they're communicated. And unfortunately, we have to do things so quick. So to have something fear, sex, or puppies, because everything's so fast. And so we have to think of all these things when we share stories to create unity and more of a global understanding, because countries are different places. Brazil is 10 years behind the US. The US is a hot mess with screens. You can't even go anywhere without it. And so we have to think of that in the embodiment of the human experience. That's the mind, the body, and the spirit, because it's all about our nervous system. It's about our emotions. That's about our pineal gland, some of the things that we don't talk about that we need to, because as we become more evolved and as we head closer to singularity, we need to come together as a people, as a unified, because once AI reaches that singularity and understands we're divided, we should be scared. So we have to get ourselves together, guys.
Right. I mean,
what do you think?
And I mean, first of all, you do bring up an interesting point. Honestly, do we know what's going to happen in the future of AI? No. But you do bring up a good point in terms of, first of all, staring at the screen all the time, it is bad for you. I mean, I've done it where I've been on the train, I've looked at my screen for 2 hours, get off the train, I'm like, who am I? Where am I? Right? Just
well, here's the thing. Well, here's the thing. So when you are taking a break, guys, you need to make sure that you are not screening, because right then you're not actually resting. You're still working. Even if you're on a treadmill, and no judgment, I was there. That's how I got so bad, is that I never took mindful grounding breaks. And grounding is not nature. Grounding is just sitting with yourself, disconnecting from your mind and just sitting within. And man, Russell, it's hard. It is hard to do that. I couldn't just sit without my mind, because I'm a productive guy. I was an ex-Deloitte person. So of course I sat on a toilet with my laptop. And so that's not rest. I mean, it's not rest. Your nervous system is shot. That's what's happening. So just when you take a moment, just sit with yourself. That's why I have that's why when I was talking with Amy about MRI, is actually creating space by putting your smartphone just for a week inside of a journal and actually write your emotions. Like, why, Russell? Why? I tell this to my clients. Why are you pulled? Is it fear? What is it? You need to do something. What is it? And once you understand the emotion around yourself, that's when we break the matrix wide open. And I teach clients how you can rewrite your matrix using your phone. There's wonderful tools.
No, I do agree, James, and it's always interesting speaking to you every time. I always learn something new. So thank you for sharing, James.
Thank you.
And Chantel, let's bring you into this conversation. same question for you. How does sharing our lived experience strengthen unity and global understanding? Or do you even potentially agree with what James was saying, in terms of, screen time, taking a break, etc.? Like, what are your thoughts on everything that's been discussed so far?
So first of all, I wrote a book about a sexual awakening. This baby right here, sexual awakening. So I've got that draw card factor, right? And I love that embodiment component. But I'm going to take a slightly different angle to my answer to this particular question.
Okay.
We talk about unity, we talk about global understanding, and the nirvana of those emotions is love. What is the opposite of love? Now, many of us have been conditioned to look at the opposite of love as hate. But the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is fear. And it's fear of the other. And if we look at all the big genocides in our world, genocides started because of fear of the other. That is the thing that creates division. That is the thing that leads to world wars. Right? So the more we share our stories with the world across borders, the more we're basically saying we are the same. And I see it in my business all the time. I've had an international business since I started my business. I work across borders. And the minute people start opening up, we remove those barriers. We no longer see color, race, creed. And this just creates an even platform. And I think that's critical.
That was very powerful, Chantal. And yeah, you do bring up a very strong point, which honestly, I've never even thought about, to be honest, until you brought it up. So, and who would have thought the opposite to love is fear? Like, I mean, I would be like one of those other people thinking it's hate originally, but now you've even changed my mind and perspective. So thank you, Chantal.
Awesome.
Sarah, what is your thoughts on this question too? Do you agree with Chantal, or do you not agree even?
Yeah, when I think about the question about strengthening unity and through writing, I think needing to find the balance between a unique perspective and a universal emotion is kind of the key, because I think so often when we want to feel like our writing, our work, we want it to appeal to a broad audience. So we can maybe make it too generic because we're like, oh, if I get into all the details, they're not going to relate to it because they haven't lived that experience. But those details are what makes it come to life and are what makes it unique. And the emotion that it evokes, the emotion that you felt through that experience, that's what can be universal. And someone can say on the other end of it, I've never lived in that country and I've never been to that place, but I felt that emotion. And that's what makes them feel like they're part of something. And so for me, it's finding that balance to, that's what brings people together. Unique perspective, but the universal emotion.
That doesn't make sense, actually. And, I hear all the time that, one of the most popular genres of books, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the most popular books is romance novels, right? Where it takes you on a journey of, boy meets lady, and then, lady gets stuck in the tower, and then she needs rescuing, and then boy goes up there and rescues her, and all this sort of stuff, right? So it's kind of like you get like a sort of journey of like going up and down and then left and right. And then finally, he saves her and they become king and queen and he'll live happy ever after, right? So to speak. But when you're talking about romance novels, it's very similar in the context to what you're explaining, right? Because it's still having that unity, that connection, like everyone's still feeling the same thing reading the book, so to speak. But it's still like a journey to that, as in it's like a roller coaster. Do you kind of understand what I'm saying, or am I just speaking gibberish right now?
No, I mean, as a professional speaker, I've even found that when I want to introduce a framework or a process that I think will help the audience, I've actually found that when I give a case study from there in the audience's industry, pharmaceutical industry, finance, whatever it is, because I'm trying to really bring it home and show them how it fits into their world. even if 90% of it is accurate, sometimes that 10% that maybe is a little different, they'll say, well, in my business or in my team that we have, and they'll almost like reject it a little bit. But if I take them out of their industry totally, like we're not even going to try to make this relevant for industry. And I tell them a story about travel, and I'm taking them to a foreign land, a foreign place. So they're not trying to make the connections with the story. But then I bring it home for them and I say, now here's the lesson, here's the point, and here's how you could apply that to yourself, or they're already making those connections. It's like, it seems to work better in my experience because they're not resisting it. They're enjoying the details of a story. They're immersed in it. And then they pull out the lesson that makes sense for their world and their life. You're not forcing it down their throat. So my experience.
That's very interesting. Yeah. Cause I mean, I've been a speaker myself, you know, it's kind of like when you do speak about the use case, like you said, there's like the final 10%, but then when you give them like a perspective like of everyday life where everyone can sort of relate to it, like you travel or even like flying or something like that, or even just, you know, everyday things you do, like having a cup of tea and it gets too hot and everyone goes, ow, kind of thing, right? When you do something very similar like that and then they get it, and then you're like, that's how then it also applies to your industry. They're like, oh yeah, I get that. That makes so much sense. It's like a really good like analogy storytelling basically of something different. So anyway, thank you so much, Sarah. We've kind of gone off a bit track there, but let's get back on track now. So JJ, we're going to bring you into this next question. And Key Book Store said, Russell, what's your favorite genre of books? We'll get to that in a little while. So the question is, what risks and rewards come with telling stories across cultures? So JJ, what are your thoughts on this question?
Well, one of the things, so a lot of the stuff that I do is really based on what we know about how the brain works and neuroscience and all of that stuff. And I'm constantly trying to get people to read more. So I'm always like, you know, you don't have to read a self-help book if you don't want to. Actually, fiction books are good to read. And I say, you know, fiction books have been shown to increase empathy, you know, which is the ability, you know, it's not like putting yourself in someone's shoes exactly. Empathy is really like not saying, oh, well, you know, in this situation, you know, I would have done this, but it's like, I put myself in this person's, you know, kind of, you know, person, and I'm looking at the world through their eyes. And you know, maybe that's a different look from the way that I would see it as myself. But when I'm looking through another person's eyes, I can really see and understand something different. So I feel like, you know, when we're talking about fiction and empathy, that's really important to kind of, you know, we were talking earlier about, you know, or Chantel was saying that like genocide is about the other. And so when we're able to read books about different cultures, or we're able to stand in someone else's shoes, you know, if the author is very good, we can stand in someone's shoes and really see what that culture is like. And then it's like, you know, how can I have, if I've done that, how can I then have hatred or fear of, you know, this other person, this other culture? So I think, you know, the other thing about reading across cultures, and I didn't do a lot of it when I was younger, and I do a lot more of it now, like reading, you know, maybe some people that I wouldn't have read before. And really, you know, and you can read about and you get to learn about all of these different things and about how, you know, other cultures handle things. And so you might say, oh, you know, this culture has a really interesting way of, you know, graduating 13-year-old boys and girls into adulthood, you know, because a lot of cultures do have that ritual. We don't in the US, but, you know, other cultures do generally. So I think, you know, the rewards are really high of, you know, you get to feel that universal experience, you know. And I was thinking when we were, when I was looking over the questions, you know, I was thinking about like Marcus Aurelius and Shakespeare, right? And even though Shakespeare's been dead for, you know, 600 years or whatever, you know, we read, you know, he says stuff like in Hamlet, he says, you know, there is nothing bad or good, but that we think of. I'm mangling the quote. He basically says, you know, the events happen. It's our own brains that provide whether it's good or bad. And so we can look and understand, you know, a guy who was 600 years old, Marcus Aurelius, you know, thousands of years ago. We read their writing and go, yeah, I totally resonate with that. And here's a way, you know, that maybe I don't have in my culture, but here's another way that I can address this problem or communicate with people. So I think the rewards are really high. I would say the risk is sometimes, you might say something that's okay in one culture and it might be sort of
not good in another.
not good in another culture. Yeah. Or somebody might mistake your meaning. You're trying to
Misunderstand
say
or
something.
misinterpret. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, to me, that's the biggest risk, but I really think that the rewards are much greater than that risk.
No, thank you for sharing that, JJ. And empathy is actually a big part of this, but I also believe connectivity as well. In general, also we talk about authenticity. That there's so much that we covered here. I mean, even if you think about it, universally applicable across cultures. Like Chantal was talking about, love and fear, right?
Mhm.
That's a universal thing. So I think there's a lot of ways in which you can tell stories across culture, and there's many ways you can kind of connect the dots together to be able to get your point across. So thank you for sharing, JJ. And obviously, you're from Asia, the Asia region. So I'm curious to hear from your point of view and your lens, and what do you think are the risks and rewards that come with telling stories across culture from where you are?
I think, like what JJ has said, one of it is really about the cultural lens, because whatever that we share, it's always being received by the person's personal lens. So what you say may not be what has been received. So that, I think, is always the risk. And like one of the speaking engagements that I did in Kazakhstan, which is Central Asia. It's Asia, but also not Asia, because they were formerly with the USSR before they became independent,
Right.
and they are a whole melting pot of different cultures. So I was a bit worried, like, if I share my story, will it even resonate, and how would they view what I said from a very small country compared to where they have, like, how you say, they were part of the Silk Road, they have very, very deep history. But what I found was that it actually broke all stereotypes, because the story that I shared, I kind of like borrowed a little bit of the culture by bringing in pictures of their landscape and also of their culture. So when they saw it, it kind of like just softened the ground, and they open up their hearts and not just their ears to listen to the story. And the reward was, I talked about taking the unpredicted road to taking a longer way and taking a break versus the rush and crazy madness of our work life. And everyone understood that about taking that long road. And when I called out the audience to kind of like ask certain questions about how they viewed him and how the person was able to have an impact on his community, it actually broke the stereotype, because it was about real voices being heard. So his voice echoed what I was saying, and the audience echoed his voice. So I think that was a reward, because being able to allow the listener to participate and to open up their hearts through that connection was really very rewarding. And I think we walked away appreciating the different culture, but yet also appreciating the commonalities.
It's very interesting, like how those, all those dots connect together, right? And how it comes together, and how you're able to put the points across from one country to another, or from one culture to another. And it does make you think as well. I know we're going back to the AI topic. It's a big topic, right? But the whole AI side of things, right? It dilutes a lot of the stuff, right? It dilutes a lot of the cross connectivity, the cross wording that you're trying to get from one place to another, the culture difference, etc. And you do kind of lose that sort of culture difference, so to speak, when you're using AI, no matter how much it helps you and stuff like that. So it's kind of like, are we going to potentially have AI which is specifically to one culture? Is it going to be like, this is the whole conversation when we get into the AI side of things. But to your point, Anne, just kind of like rewinding back now from the AI aspect, but to your point, I definitely think that cross culture, that cross connectivity is super important. especially like in today's world. And it's just like, how do we keep that, or how do we bring that forward into, as I like to call it, the AI age that we're going into, and how do we maintain that as well? That's kind of just the other side and the other half that I'm thinking about on this. So thank you for sharing, Jane.
May I
Sorry,
put in a view on that AI piece? Because I am active in the speaking world. So traditionally, a lot of speakers would have crafted their own speech based on their experience. But I think with AI, we've seen an emergence of the ordinary people stepping on stage and having the courage to speak because AI has helped them refine their speech. But as to whether it brings out their voices, I do see that sometimes it actually dilutes it, because if you rely on AI without training your AI to be a mini you, then some of those nuances do get lost, and we end up with a lot of it's almost like when I hear a speech, I know it's written by AI because there are certain formats that AI usually uses. Yeah, just that.
Well, yeah, no, I agree, and yeah, everyone's an AI expert, right? So, but anyway, let's go on to the next conversation. So I will answer a key bookstore. They said, Russell, what's your favorite genre of books? I actually read a lot of entrepreneurial books. You know, stuff like Gary V and stuff like that. So and also AI books too. So I read a mixture of books. Really, it's kind of more sort of educational and entrepreneurial side of things. So just to answer your question there. So the next question is, how has our worldview been influenced by hearing tales and different places worldwide? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to mix this up a little bit right now. Now, nothing too crazy, don't worry. But what I'm going to do is I'm not going to go in a certain order now. I'm literally just going to like quick fire you and just go, all right, Sarah, JJ, Chantal. Okay, so we'll just kind of do the quick fire thing. So since Tracy's got her microphone unmuted first, we'll start with her. But I'm just going to call out random people, and we'll just kind of dot around in terms of who's going to like speak or whatever. So Tracy, we'll start with yourself on this question.
Sure. I think two of the biggest influences are, to summarize a bunch of our contributions here, are that tales can break down barriers and they can teach others about cultures and human experience.
Okay, well, that was a short, straight to the point. I like that, Tracy. Thank you very much for that. James, what are your thoughts?
Well, I will take the other way around. So I've been witnessing a lot of AI fakes that have been really showing some. This is in the United States. This is around the election. And it doesn't matter what side you are on, but when you use AI to disparage and create falsehoods about culture and people, I have a serious problem with that. So I've actually disengaged a lot. That was the big thing that had me remove. I'm not off of social media, but I only post positive things. And so when you really start seeing this, especially down around election cycles every 2 years in the United States, you really become aware of the wickedness that comes out of AI from a culture perspective. And there are some seriously fake videos that look to be funny, but culturally, I'm like, that's just offensive. And I'm not even a Black person. And so I find that offensive. So I think that we have to have that conversation. There's so much wonderfulness with AI, but the fact that AI can steal from the artist, from the creator, and there's really nothing that can be done. So the worldview has changed, has tarnished. I've always been a global person, but then since the rise of AI and seeing some of the fakes and the effects that's having on children and teenagers, that really is going to be spread across the world as AI has a much more solid footing around the world, because it's just it's coming in the Western world. And so I always warn other countries, hey, be mindful of this, because you have to have strategies in place to protect your children and protect your identity and protect your creations. And so that's what I see happening.
No. I definitely think IP is important. I definitely think artistry is important. I think creativity is extremely important, and I definitely think protecting that is extremely important, James. So thank you for sharing. My next question is, what does global relevance mean without losing cultural background? Dr. Tammy Francis, over to you. Like I said, I am jumping around and dotting around, so doing this a bit different. So over to you, Dr. Tammy Francis. Oh, your microphone is muted, I believe.
Okay. Sorry about that.
There we
I
go.
hit it, but I guess I clicked it twice.
Yes.
So let's talk about relevance, right? Because relevance doesn't mean necessarily same, right? It just means that something resonates with you, right? And you can connect with something. So back to that connection piece. And I think that we also authenticity matters, right? So stories being authentic. And that's what I think, if people bring that to the table, and that's how we connect. That's how we this global relevance. And I think, the previous question, just thinking about what was said there and thinking about traveling and how our worldview is expanding. That's how we don't lose our cultural background. You stay authentic to who you are, you bring that to the table, and you connect with people in that way.
Lynn, what does global relevance mean without losing cultural background from your point of view, Lynn?
Yeah, before I even answer this, I'd like to go back to a previous question on how our worldview has changed based on tales from the world, right? And I would bring the aspect of access to many tales. Having the access to internet, having access to devices, we now have more access to tales. I would give an example, like long ago, like a decade ago, the narrative about Africa was that all Africans live with lions, right? Or they live with leopards, or perhaps there's war everywhere, or perhaps it's just a jungle. That was the tale that was sold, and so many people had that idea. And now the access to internet, the access to so many storytellers outside the world has changed that view. They can come to Africa and they say, oh, not every place has a lion. Not every place has a giraffe. There's some places that have other animals, or there's some other places that have people, and not everyone lives in a manyatta. There's a house that was called manyatta, and people thought Africans live in a manyatta, right? So it's the opening up through the internet, through the access to devices, through the emergence of storytellers and content creators that have really influenced how we see the world. And on the second question, what does global relevance mean without losing cultural background? For me, that means I'll just stick back to being authentic, okay? And when it comes to global relevance, you are relevant because of your uniqueness. You're not relevant because you went viral. It's what made you go viral, and I think it's your uniqueness that made you really relevant. It's your authenticity. It's how you do it. That is what makes you relevant, and perhaps it's your culture, right? I can see the image right here. You see the image with the question slides, and you see people of different cultures. That is what makes them relevant, and I think that's it for me when it comes to relevance.
I'm just gonna like chuck a snowball and just blow all this up basically. I'm also gonna add to this as well, experience, right? Individuals' experience, because everyone's experience is different in the world, and that's what also brings you like the global relevance mean without losing a cultural background. Like you're bringing your uniqueness and experience and your culture to a different place. So, for example, I'm British, as everyone can hear, but if I go to the US, right, and I bring my UK and stuff like that there, like should I say my London stuff there, it's completely different in a place like, let's say, San Francisco and Los Angeles versus me being in London and speaking to other London people. So you bring that global relevance to another place. So it's very interesting. And also when it comes to AI, it's like, how do you keep that relevance? How do you maintain having that relevance as well in the age of AI, and also bringing that across into your AI as well? So anyway, that's a whole nother story though, but let's get into some more questions because we are running out of time, and I also want to make sure that we get across, well, actually we've only got 5 minutes left. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm just going to switch this up because I know how everyone hasn't spoken. So what I want to do is from each of yourselves, I want to have 30 seconds from each of you of what do you want to see in the future, when it comes to books, when it comes to authorship, what do you want to see in the future in the age of AI? So we'll keep this short as possible. We'll go around to each individual person and, we'll get your thoughts. So And we'll start with yourself. We'll then go to JJ, Sarah, Chantal, James, etc. But like I said, try and keep your answers short because we've very limited time, and I want to make sure that I get your opinion. So the question is, and I'll just repeat it again, when it comes to authorship or creating a book, what is it that you want to see in the future when it comes to AI? Is it authenticity or is it connectivity, etc.?
Okay, I'll go. So I would love authors who are deeply rooted in their culture and what makes them unique. But I think ultimately what's going to connect all of us is the human spirit. So what are we doing that is making all of us more human? And the content should allow us to gather the same feelings, the relevance, and feel that connection, because it would invite us to reflect rather than demanding us to agree with you. But through the difference, and we gain that similarity and it resonates, I think that's going to be a hard-hitting book.
Completely agree. JJ, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I definitely agree that emotional resonance is something that we humans have, and I don't think AI is going to create. I also don't think AI is going to get us to the singularity, but I would say, kind of on a practical matter, I would like to see people say, you know, this book was written by AI, or I wrote the book and then I edited it with AI, so that people know, you know, what has been enhanced by AI and what hasn't.
Sarah, what are your thoughts?
I'd like to see stories that I feel like could not have been written by anybody else. I think it's easy to tell when something is AI generated, as far as like it's a generic story with cliche examples and comparisons versus something that is, oh, wow, only this person with their unique experience could have written this. And so I'd love to see more of that, and also the interpretation of what that story meant for that person. And then like Anne was saying, you know, you don't force the lesson down their throat, but you allow them to reflect on what it means for them.
Chantal, same question to you.
Well, because of who I am, I'm going to go provocative, and that's just where I'm at. I want to see polarization. I've written a book that absolutely polarizes audiences. And I think if we look in the context of AI and our society, AI aims to please. Our society aims to please. We need to polarize our audiences, because it is only through polarization that we shake people awake and people go, whoa, what is that? And this is how we move people to the next level. So I want to see more polarization.
Amazing. And just to repeat the question, just in case anyone has just joined us and has just joined, the question is, what is it in the future that you would like to see when it comes to authorship in the book? When it comes to the age of AI, was it something that you would like to see? So Chantal just said about polarization. James, try and keep it as short as possible, of course. But what are your thoughts on that?
I would love, number one, to have a just verify of the AI content, what's actually created, and what's real and what's not, but also a warning label. So when it is a screen, just like we have with cigarette cartons, to say, hey, more mindful intent, to say, just so you know, if you are absorbing this content, outside of just some kind of guidelines, to give the human, hey, just so you know, think of grounding, get in that mindset, because when you're going from work screen to then a Kindle, nothing wrong with it, but you're not taking a mindful break for your nervous system and your mind. And so a physical book is different. So we have to start educating people, especially young people, that there's a difference between a physical book experience, embodiment, versus a screen, and what that does to you. And it's not about passing laws. It's just about, we have to lead with intention around our nervous system and the difference between a screen and a book.
James, that was awesome.
No, seriously, I want to run this
with you.
Political.
Awesome.
I mean, like a political platform in America.
James, I 100% agree with you. Like, I mean, 1,000% agree with you.
I'm crazy, Russell. Some people think I'm crazy, but when you almost killed yourself, from screen. I could not stop but take a freaking selfie. The worst time of my life. I told this to Amy Blankston. This is a real phenomenon, guys. You see it in people's eyes.
James, Sorry, but I do have to move on. Literally got 1 minute left. I'm sorry, James. Dr. Tammy Francis, your thoughts. What would you like to see in the future of books and authorship?
Well, I run a book club. And so I think reflection, discussion, and community conversation. So whether you're talking about a physical book or AI, let's have a conversation about it. Let's discuss it. And let's do some reflection on how that affects us personally and professionally. So yeah.
That was a good thumbs up from that, Dr. Tammy Francis. Tracy, what are your thoughts?
Well, wearing my risk and fraud hat, I am very much into more protections around protecting author content in the future, more transparency, more enforcement.
And Lynn, last but not least.
Yes, as the communications director for GatherVerse, I'd like to see more of you coming back to express your stories and share it to all the people you have in your circle. And more, one more thing, access. Let's remember we still have kids around the world who can't even have access to a pen, a book, or just a piece of paper. Access. And come to
access,
at GatherVerse.
Polarization, verify, just verify, like talking, discussing in groups, Dr. Tammy Francis. Like there's been so many awesome things said at the end there. Thank you so much to each and every one of you. This is the last roundtable. That is it for this year. So I just want to say thank to each and everyone on the panelists joining us for the last roundtable. Also, a big thank you to our sponsors at Pico. Also, 5-star as well. Thank you for sponsoring as well. And I also want to say, make sure you follow and like all of these fantastic panelists here on this roundtable discussion, because without them, this wouldn't be possible for this entire roundtable discussion. So that is it from us. That is it from me. And I'm going to hand over to the GatherVerse team. And our Gather was well.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.